Oh, bottom here. Prepare.
My mic is right here. I just happen to be listening to my book. Okay? God damn it. Well, it's Diddy time. Diddy didn't do no work during Diddy time. Diddy sit back and relax during Diddy time. Like, I'm trying to get my rocks. You know, I gotta get these rocks off. It is too. No, your stream was great. It really was. Yeah, I got the oil right there. I got the Diddy oil. I got the Diddy fire, cause you know he likes his drink. I got the Diddy dildos. They didn't seize them all. And then we got the Diddy nuts. What's up? Let me check to see if the Twitch money hit. And if it has, is it a hard copy or a digital copy? Digital? Is it on Google? Is it on the Play Store? Like in Google Books?
It plays in Daddy's face, and when Daddy forgets us, Mum's so sick.
I don't have a Kindle, but it ain't gonna stop me from getting something. I do. Ah, shit! There's a chicken head. I'm over here beating up these old ladies that can't even run. Already got them on the ground. They're lucky I can't crouch, because every time I'd kill one of those things, I'd teabag it. And this is why Diddy comes down. inside that ass. All this Diddy stuff is joke, Shaw. Don't take it seriously. Lord, I can see someone doing that. Alright, we got farther gastrointestinal now. I think he's got the coolest cutscene.
Beasts all over the shop. You will be one of them, sooner or later.
What the fuck? Dude, stop this shit. Why is it shooting so fucking slow? There we go. Did I really fucking miss? Now I gotta get another berry. Father Gascoigne complete. Now we're on to the Bloodstar Beast.
His sword and said, "Dead yet again, Shadowslayer. How repetitive. Do you wish to continue?" His tone indicated that he thought it would be pointless. "Aye," grunted Aragon. He had already suffered an episode with his back and was in no mood to bandy words. Still, when Veneer said, "Tell me, as I am curious, how did you kill Durza when you were so slow?" I cannot fathom how you managed it. Aragon felt himself surprised. I thought you might surprise. Forgive me, actually, yes, trickery was involved. Aragon fought the impulse to grind his teeth. If I were an elder with perhaps. 3 seconds and 2 blows, disarmed Aragon. But I think not. You should not boast to a better swordsman, else he may decide to punish your temerity. Aragon remembered no of magic. Energy with one of the 12 minor words of binding, crying, Nalbane. To chain Veneer's legs and arms in place and hold his jaw shut so that he could not utter a counterspell. With outrage. Aragon did not more skilled in magic than you. Dark eyebrows met. Without warning or a whisper of a sound, an invisible force clouded Aragon on the chest and threw him 10 yards across the grass, where he landed upon his side, driving him into the front. Aragon and freed Veneer. How did you do that? Advancing upon him, Veneer said, "Your ignorance betrays had the honor to serve the morning sage, he shook his head. It sickens me that such gifts are bestowed upon one so unworthy. You do not even understand what magic is or how it works. Aragon's anger was like a crimson tide. Why do you despise yourself? Would you prefer it if no rider my opinions are of little consequence. I agree, but I would hear them. Listening, as you all erode in convocations, is the path to wisdom only when the result of a conscious decision and not a void of perception. Straighten your mouth, Veneer smiled coldly. If you command, draw near so that only Aragon can hear the soft voice. The elf said, for 80 years after the fall of the riders, we held no hope of victory. We survived by hiding ourselves through the sea of magic, looking for the temporary measure, for eventually down the forest, strong enough to march upon it and sweep aside our defenses. And, long after we had resigned ourselves to our fate, Rom and Leon rescued Saphir and Ben, and put the usurper. Celebration. When I was in my egg, Arya exposed me to each and every one of these elves, as well as the largest children. All. I wouldn't have chosen someone to be my rider unless they could help your race, I, and the elves, for the sake of share and intertwined fate. The right person, at the right place, at the right time. Never heard the past. If ever that were true, then, it was before Durza injured me. Now I see naught but darkness and evil in our future. I won't give up, but I despair that we may not prevail. Perhaps our path is not to overthrow Galbatorix, Aragon found oil lacking along the line Aragon bowed and knelt. Master. The last before Oromas finished blooming the tuft of needles on a gnarled juniper tree, laid aside his ink, cleaned his sable brush with water from a clay pot, and then addressed Aragon, saying, why have you come so early? I apologize for disturbing you, but Veneer abandoned our contest partway through and I did not know what to do with myself. Why did Veneer leave? Aragon voter. Oromas folded his hands in his lap while Aragon described the encounter, ending with, I should not have lost control, but I did, and I looked all the more foolish because of it. Master. You have agreed to respond in time. You must keep a better hold over your emotions, Aragon. It could cost you your life if you allow your temper to sway your judgment during battle. Also, for such errors. I am sorry, Master. It won't happen again. As Oromas seemed content to wait in his chair until the time when they normally performed the Rimgar, Aragon seized the opportunity to ask, how could Veneer have worked magic without speaking? Did he? Perhaps another elf decided to assist him. Aragon shook his head. During my first day in Elsmera, I also saw Icelandzati summon a downpour of flowers by clapping her hands, nothing more. And Veneer said that I didn't understand how magic works. What did he mean? Once again, said Oromas, resigned. That might be produced at random by any creature or thing. that seem absurd? Aragon said, it doesn't matter if it seems absurd, Master, it just is. Should I think it absurd that the moon wanes and waxes, or that the seasons turn, or that birds fly south in the winter? Of course not. But how could mere sound do so much? In particular, patterns of pitch and volume really trigger reactions that allow us to manipulate entities. Saying a word or phrase in this language is not less important. With a flick of his wrist, a golden flame appeared over Oromus's palm, then disappeared. However, the desire, still utter our spells out loud for the most experienced magic user. The implication staggered Aragon. He thought back to when he almost drowned under the waterfall of the Lake Costa Mirna and how he had been unable to access magic because of the water surrounding him. If I had known this then, I could have saved myself, he thought. Master, he said, if sound does not affect magic, why, then, thought. Now Oromus smiled. Why indeed? I must point out that spells are not the source of magic. Magic can exist on its own. And the floating crystal on O. Wild magic such as this is treacherous, unpredictable, and often stronger than you can catch. Years ago, all magic was such. It required nothing but the ability to sense magic with your mind, which every magician must possess, and the desire and strength to use it. Without the structure of the ancient language, magicians could not govern their talent and, as a result, loosed many evils upon the land, killing thousands. Over time they discovered that stating their intentions in their language helped them to order their thoughts and avoid costly errors. But it was no foolproof method. Eventually, an accident occurred so horrific that it almost destroyed every living being in the world. We know of the event from fragments of manuscripts that survived the era, but who or what cast the fatal spell is hidden from us. The manuscripts say that, afterward, a race called the Grey Folk, not elves, for we were young then, gathered their resources and wrought an enchantment, perhaps the greatest that was or ever shall be. Together the Grey Folk changed the nature of magic itself. They made it so that their language, the ancient language, could control what a spell does. It actually limits a magic so that if you said burn that door and by chance looked at me and thought of me,
to
the magic
celebrate
would
our
still burn the door,
acquaintance.
not me. And they gave the ancient language its two unique traits.
Beast
The ability to
hunting
prevent
is a
those who
sacred...
speak it from lying and the ability to describe the true nature of things. How they did this remains a mystery. The manuscripts differ on what happened to the Grey Folk when they completed their work, but it seems that the enchanted race took their power and left them but a shadow of themselves. They faded away, to live in their cities until the stone turned to dust and they among the younger races and so pass into darkness. Then, said Aragon, it is still possible to use magic. Then, said Aragon, it is still possible to use magic without the ancient language. How do you think Saphira breathes fire? And, by your own account, she used no word when she turned bronze to diamond nor when she blessed the child in Farth Endure. Dragons' minds are different from ours. They need no protection from magic. They cannot use it consciously, aside from their father, when the gift touches them, their strength is unparalleled. Trouble, Aragon. Why? Aragon stared down at his hand. What does this mean for me, Master? It means that you will continue to study the ancient language, for you can accomplish much with it that would be too complex or too dangerous otherwise. It means that if you are captured and gagged, you still call upon magic to free yourself, as Veneer did. It means that if you are captured and drugged and cannot recall the ancient language, yes, even then, you may cast a spell, though only in the great and it means that if you would cast a spell for that which has no name in the ancient language, you can. He paused, but beware the temptation to use these powers. Even the wisest among us hesitate to trifle with them for fear of death or worse. The next morning, and every morning thereafter so long as he stayed in Elsmera, Aragon he never lost his temper again, no matter what the Elsmera said. Nor did Aragon feel like their rivalry. His passion more and more frequently, driving him to the limit of his endurance. The debilitating attack sensitized him. That caused him no trouble to now leave him writhing on the ground. Even the Rimgar began to trigger the seizures as he advanced to more strenuous poses. It was not uncommon for him to suffer 3 or 4 such episodes in one day. Aragon was haggard. He walked with shuffle, slow and careful as he tried to preserve his strength. It became hard for him to think clearly or to pay attention on her back and did everything that she could to make him comfortable and to save him effort. One morning, as he clung to a spike on her neck, Aragon said, "I have a new name for pain." "What's that?" "The obliterator. Because when you're in pain, nothing else can exist. Not thought, not emotion, only the drive to escape the pain. When it's strong enough, the obliterator strips us of everything that makes us who we are, until we're reduced to creatures less than animals, creatures with a single desire and goal, escape."
You there?
Good name, then.
Hunter!
I'm falling apart, Saphira, like an old horse that's plowed too many fields. Keep hold of me with your mind, or I may drift apart and forget who I am. I will never let go of you. Soon afterward, Aragon fell victim to 3 bouts of agony while fighting Vanir and then 2 more during the ring guard. As he uncurled from the clenched ball he had rolled into, Oromus said, again, "Aragon, you must perfect your balance." Aragon shook his head and growled in an undertone, "No." He crossed his arms to hide his tremors. "What? No. Get up, Aragon, and try again." "No. Do the pose yourself." "I won't." Oromus knelt beside Aragon and placed a cool hand on his cheek. Holding it there, he gazed at Aragon with such kindness. Aragon understood the depth of the elf's compassion for him, and that, if it were possible, Oromus would willingly assume Aragon's pain to relieve his suffering. "Don't abandon hope," said Oromus. Never that. A measure of strength seemed to flow from him to Aragon. "We are the riders. We stand between the light and the dark, and keep the balance between the two. Ignorance, fear, hate, these are our enemies. Deny them with all your might, Aragon, or we will surely fail." He stood and extended a hand toward Aragon. "Now rise, Shadeslayer, and prove you can conquer the instincts of your flesh." Aragon took a deep breath and pushed himself upright on one arm, wincing from the effort. He got his feet underneath himself, paused for a moment, then straightened to his full height. The elf nodded with approval. Aragon remained silent and went to bathe in the stream, whereupon he said, "Master." Aragon, why must I endure this torture? You could use magic to give me the skills I need to make my body into the trees and plants. I could, but if I did, you would not understand how you got the body you have,
here in
your
the
own
stream
abilities,
to look
nor how
after
to maintain
you.
them. No shortcuts exist for the path
Honorable
you
Hunt,
walk,
and I
Aragon.
will check. You will have
Cold
to.
water rushed over the length of Aragon's body as he lowered
Very
himself
well,
into
let
the
me.
stream. He ducked his head under the surface, holding a rock so that he would not float away, and lay stretched out along the stream, feeling like an arrow flying through the water. Narda. Roran leaned on one knee and scratched his new beard as he looked down at Narda. The small town was dark and compact, like a crust of rye bread jammed into a crevasse along the coast. Beyond it, the wine-red sea glimmered with the last rays of the dying sunset. The water fascinated him. It was utterly different from the landscape he was accustomed to. We made it. Leaving the promontory, Roran walked back to his makeshift tent, enjoying deep breaths of the salty air. They had camped high in the foothills of the spine in order to avoid detection by anyone who might alert the Empire as to their whereabouts. As he strode among the clumps of villagers huddled beneath the trees, Roran surveyed their condition with sorrow and anger. The trek from Palanquer Valley had left people sick, battered, and exhausted, their faces gaunt from lack of food, their clothes tattered. Most everyone wore rags tied around their hands to ward off frostbite during the frigid mountain nights. Weeks of carrying heavy packs had bowed one's proud shoulders. The worst sight was the children, thin and unnaturally still. They deserve better, thought Roran. I'd be in the clutches of the Rizak right now if they hadn't protected me. Most of whom wanted nothing more than a touch on the shoulder or a word of comfort. Some offered him bits of food, which he refused for, when they insisted, gave to someone else. Those who remained at a distance watched with round, pale eyes. What he said about him. That spirit possessed him, that not even the Rizak could defeat him in battle. Crossing the spine had been even harder than Roran expected. The forest trails, which were too narrow, steep, and meandering for their group. As a result, the villagers were often forced to chop their way through the trees and underbrush, a painstaking task that everyone despised, not least because it made it easy for the Empire to track them. The one advantage to the situation was that the exercise restored Roran's injured shoulder to its still had some on his hurt ankles. Other hardships took their toll. A sudden storm passed them on a bare path high above the timberline. 3 people froze in the snow: Peeta, Brenna, and Nesbit, all of whom were quite old. That night was the first time Roran was seen, but the entire village drowned in a glacier stream. Wolves and bears preyed upon their livestock on a regular basis, ignoring the wildfires that the villagers lit once they were concealed from Palanker Valley and Galbatorix's hated soldiers. Hunger clung to them like a relentless parasite, gnawing at their bellies, devouring their strength, and sapping their will to continue. And yet they survived, displaying the same obstinacy and fortitude that kept their ancestors in Palanker Valley despite famine, war, and pestilence. The people of Carvajal might take an age and a half to reach a decision, but once they did, nothing could deter them from their course. Now that they had reached Narda, no one knew what would happen next, but the fact that they had gotten so far gave them confidence. We won't be safe until we leave the Empire, thought Roran. And it's up to me to do it. I can responsibility from everyone here, a responsibility that he had embraced wholeheartedly, allowed him to protect the villagers from Galbatorix and the whole revolution to him. It's so long since she was captured. How could she still survive? He allowed himself to bridge over to his fate. At dawn, Roran, Horst, Valdor, Roran's 3 sons, and Gertrude set out for Narda. Their ragged clothes, then lowered their poleaxes and barred the entrance. "Where he be from?" asked the man on the right. He did not have an old 25, nearly already airline. Swelling his chest, Horst prompted on his head, "What brings you here?" "Trade. We're sent by shopkeepers who want to buy goods directly from Narda." "That's so. P.H. What goods?" When Horst faltered, Gertrude said, "Herbs and medicine on my part. The plants I perceive from here have either been too old or moldy and spoiled. I have to procure a fresh supply. And my brother and I," said Darman, "came to bargain with your cobblers. Shoes made in the northern style are fashionable and brought beyond an end for the ribbon. At least they were when we set out." Horst nodded with renewed confidence. "I expecting much shipment of ironwork for my master." "So you say. What about that one? What does he do?" asked the soldier, motioning toward Roran to the back. "Pottery," said Roran. "Pottery. Pottery. Why the hammer, then? How do you think the glaze on a body are dark and cracked? It doesn't happen by itself, you know. You have to hit it." Roran returned the white-haired man's stare of disbelief with a blank expression, daring him to challenge the statement. The soldier grunted and ran his gaze over them again. "Be it that may, you don't look like tradesmen to me. Starved alley cats is more like it." "We had difficulty on the road," said Gertrude. "That I believe. If you came from Term, where be your horses?" "Left them at our camp," supplied Hammond. "Now, opposite where the rest of the I don't have the point to stay in town, P.H. With a scornful chuckle, the soldier raised his axe and gestured for his companion to do likewise. "All right, you can pass, but don't cause trouble that you not for work." Once through the gate, Horst pulled Roran to the side of the street and growled in his ear, "Pick up something as ridiculous as that. Cracking the blade. If you want to fight, we can't." He stopped his Gertrude clutching his sleeve. "Look," murmured the healer. To the left of the entrance stood a 6-foot-wide message board with a narrow shingle roof to protect the yellowing parchment underneath. Half the board was devoted to official notices and proclamations. On the other half hung a block of posters displaying sketches of various criminals. Foremost among them was a drawing of Roran without a beard. Startled, Roran glanced around to make sure that no one in the street was close enough to compare his face to the illustration, then devoted his attention to the poster. He had expected the Empire to pursue them, but it was still a shock to encounter proof of it. Galbatorix must be expending an enormous amount of resources trying to catch us. When they were confined, it was easy to forget that the outside world existed. "I bet posters of me are nailed up throughout the Empire." He grinned, glad that he had stopped shaving and that he and the others had agreed to use false names while in Narda. The report was taped to the bottom of the poster. Arrow never taught Roran and Aragon to read, but he did teach them to read because, as he said, you have to know how much you own, what it's worth, and what you're paid for, so you don't get hooked by some two-faced knave. Thus, subsided, Roran felt his old anger about Aragon's Arrow's death and the destruction of their farm taking place, accompanied by a burning desire to know why the Empire was hunting Aragon. It must have something to do with that blue stone and the Rizak's first visit to Carvajal. Once again, Roran wondered what kind of fiendish machinations he and the rest of Carvajal had become entangled in. Instead of a reward, Aragon's poster bore 2 lines of runes. What crime is he accused of? Roran asked Gertrude. The skin around Gertrude's eyes wrinkled as she squinted at the board. Treason, the both of you. It says Galbatorix will bestow and hurl them on whoever captures Aragon, but that those who try should take care because he's extremely dangerous. Roran blinked with astonishment. Aragon. It seemed inconceivable until Roran considered how he himself had changed in the past few weeks. The same blood runs in our veins. Who knows, Aragon may have accomplished as much or more than I have since he left. In a low voice, Baldor said, if killing Galbatorix's men and defying the Rizak only earns you 10,000 crowns, guard that is what makes yours and hurl them. Buttering the king himself, suggested Larn. That's enough of that, said Hort. Guard your tongue better, Baldor, or we'll end up in irons. And, Roran, don't draw attention to yourself again. With a reward like that, people are bound to be watching strangers for anyone who matches your description. Running a hand through his hair, Horst pulled up his belt and said, right. We all have jobs to do. Return here at noon to report on your progress. With that their party split into 3. Darman, Larn, and Hammond set out together to purchase food for the villagers, both to meet present needs and to sustain them through the next stage of their journey. Gertrude, as she had told the guard, went to replenish her stock of herbs, unguents, and tinctures. And Roran, Horst, and Baldor headed down the sloping streets to the docks, where they hoped to charter a ship that could transport the villagers to Surda or, at the very least, Term. When they reached the weathered boardwalk that covered the beach, Roran halted and stared out at the ocean, which was gray from low clouds and dotted with whitecaps from erratic wind. He had never imagined that the horizon could be so perfectly flat. The hollow boom of water knocking against the pile of fish made him feel as if he stood upon the surface of a huge drum. The odor of fish, fresh, gutted, and rotting, overwhelmed every other smell. Glancing from Roran to Baldor, who was likewise entranced, Horst said, quite a sight, isn't it? Aye, said Roran. Makes you feel rather small, doesn't it? Aye, said Baldor. Horst nodded. I remember when I first saw the ocean, it had a similar effect on me. When was that? Asked Roran. In addition to the flocks of seagulls whirling over the cove, he noticed an odd type of bird perched upon the piers. The animal had an ungainly body with a striped beak that it kept tucked against its breast like a pompous old man, a white head and neck, and a skinny torso. One of the birds lifted its beak, revealing a leathery pouch underneath. Bartram, the smith who came before me, said Horst, died when I was 15, a year before the end of my apprenticeship. I had to find a smith who was willing to finish another man's work, so I traveled to Sunan, and built along the North Sea. There I met Kelton, a vile old man but good at what he did. He agreed to teach me. Horst laughed. By the time we were done, I wasn't sure if I should thank him or curse him. Thank him, I should think, said Baldor. You never would have married Mother otherwise. Roran scowled as he studied the waterfront. There aren't many ships, he observed. 2 craft were berthed at the south end of the port and a third at the opposite side with nothing but fishing boats and dinghies in between. Of the southern pair, one had a broken mast. Roran had no experience with ships but, to him, none of the vessels appeared large enough to carry almost 300 passengers. Going from one ship to the next, Roran, Horst, and Baldor soon discovered that they were all otherwise engaged. It would take a month or more to repair the ship with the broken mast. The vessel beside it, the Wave Runner, was rigged with leather sails and was about to venture north to the treacherous islands where the Seether plant grew. And the Albatross, the last ship, had just arrived from distant Feinster and was getting its seams recalked before departing with its cargo of wool. A dockworker laughed at Horst's questions. You're too late and too early at the same time. Most of the spring ships came and left 3 weeks ago. And, another month, the nor'westers will start gusting, and, then the seal and walrus hunters will return and we'll get ships from here and the rest of the empire to take the hide, meat, and oil. Then you might have a chance of hiring a captain with an empty hold. Meanwhile, we don't see much more traffic than this. Desperate, Roran asked, is there no other way to get goods from here to Term? It doesn't have to be fast or comfortable. Well, said the man, touching the box on his shoulder. If it doesn't have to be fastened, you're only going to tear, then you might try Clovis over there. He pointed to a line of sheds that floated between two piers where boats could be stored. He owns some barges that he ships grain on in the fall. The rest of the year, Clovis fishes for a living, like most everybody in Narda. Then he frowned. What kind of goods do you have? The sheep have already been shorn, and no copper in as of yet. It's a mat, said Horst. He tossed the man a copper. The dock worker pocketed it with a wink and a nudge. Right you are, sir. This and that, I know a dodge when I see one. But no need to fear old Ulrich. Mum's th. Word, it is. Be seeing you, then, sir. He strolled off, whistling. As it turned out, Clovis was absent from the docks. After getting directions, it took them a half hour to walk to his house on the other side of Narda, where they found Clovis planting iron bolts along the path to his front door. He was a stout man with sunburned cheeks and a salt and pepper beard. An additional hour passed before they could convince the mariner that they really were interested in his barges, despite the season, and then he took back to the shed, which he unlocked to reveal two identical barges, the Marybelle, Adeline, and Red Boar. Each barge was 75 feet long, 20 feet wide, and painted rust red. They had open holes that could be covered with tarpaulin, a mast that could be erected in the center for a single square sail, and a block of above-deck cabins at the rear, or aft, as Clovis called it, of the craft. Their draft be deeper than that of an inland scow, explained Clovis, so you needn't fear them capsizing in rough weather, though you'd do well to avoid being caught in a real tempest. These barges aren't meant for the open sea. They're meant to stay within sight of land. And now be the worst time to launch them. By my honor, we've had nothing but thunderstorms every afternoon for a month. Do you have crews for all three? Asked Roran. Well now, see, there's a problem. Most of the men I employ left weeks ago to hunt seals, as they're wont to do. Since I need them only after the harvest, they're free to come and go as they please for the rest of the year. I'm sure you fine gentlemen understand my position. Clovis tried to smile, then Roran walked the length of the Adeline, examining it for damage. The barge was old, but the whistle sound of the paint was fresh. If you replaced the missing men in your crew, how much would it cost to go to Cairn with all three barges? That depends, said Clovis. The sailors earn 15 coppers per day, plus as much good food as they can eat and a dram of whiskey besides. What your men earn be your own business. I won't put them on my payroll. I won't put them on my payroll. Normally, we also hire guards for each barge, but they're off hunting, yes, said Roran. We'll provide guards as well. The knob in Clovis's tan throat jumped as he swallowed. That'd be more than reasonable, so it would. In addition to the crew wages, I charge a fee of 200 crowns, plus recompense for any damage to the barges on account of your men, plus, as boat owner and captain, 12% of the total profit from sale of the cargo. Our trip will have no profit. That, more than anything, seemed to unnerve Clovis. He rubbed a dimple in his chin with his left thumb, began to talk twice, stopped, then finally said, if that be the case, another 400 crowns upon completion of the voyage. What, if I may make so bold as to inquire, do you wish to transport? We frighten him, thought Roran. Livestock. Be it sheep, cattle, horses, goats, oxen. Our herds contain an assortment of animals. And why do you want to take them to Term? We have our reasons. Roran almost smiled at Clovis's confusion. Would you consider sailing past Term? No, Term's my limit, it is. I don't know the waters beyond, nor would I want to be gone any longer from my wife and daughter. When could you be ready? Clovis hesitated and executed two little steps. May have 5 or 6 days. No, you'd better make it a week. I have affairs that I must attend to before departing. You pay an additional 10 crowns to leave day after tomorrow. I don't. 12 crowns. Day after tomorrow it is, vowed Clovis. One way or another, I'll be ready by then. Trailing his hand along the barge's gunwale, Roran nodded without looking back at Clovis and said, may I have a minute alone to confer with my associates? As you wish, sir. I'll just go for a turn about the docks until you're done. Clovis hurried to the door. Just as he exited the shed, he asked, I'm sorry, but what'd be your name again? I fear I missed it earlier, and my memory can be something dreadful. Stronghammer. My name is Stronghammer. Ah, of course, a good name, that. When the door closed, Horst and Baldur converged on Roran. Baldor said. We can't afford to hire him. We can't afford not to, replied Roran. We don't have the gold to buy the barges, nor do I fancy teaching myself to handle them when everyone's lives depend on it. It'll be faster and safer to pay for a crew. It's still too expensive, said Horst. Roran drummed his fingers against the gunwale. We can pay Clovis's initial fee of 200 crowns. Once we reach Term, though, I suggest that we either steal the barges using the skills we learned during the trip or incapacitate Clovis and his men until we can escape through other means. That way, we avoid paying the extra 400 crowns, as well as the sailors' wages. I don't like cheating a man out of honest work, said Horst. It goes against my fiber. I don't like it either, but can you think of an alternative? How would you get everyone onto the barges? Have them meet Clovis a league or so down the coast, out of sight of Narda. Horst sighed. Very well, we'll do it, but it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Call Clovis back in, Baldor, and we'll seal this pact. That evening, the villagers gathered around a small banked fire in order to hear what had transpired in Narda. From where he knelt on the ground, Roran stared at the pulsing coals while he listened to Gertrude and the three brothers describe their separate adventures. The news about Roran's and Aragon's posters caused murmurs of unease among the audience. When Donald finished, Horst took his place with short, brisk sentences, related the lack of proper ships in Narda, how the dockworker recommended Clovis, and the deal that was brokered thereafter. However, the moment Horst mentioned the word barges, the villagers' cries of ire and discontent blotted out his voice. Marching to the forefront of the group, Roran raised his arms for attention. Barges, said the cobbler. Barges. We don't want no stinking barges. He spat by his foot as people clamored with agreement. Everyone, be quiet, said Delwyn. We'll be heard if we keep this up. When the crackling fire was the loudest noise, he continued at a slower pace. I agree with Loring. Barges are unacceptable. They're slow and vulnerable, and we'd be crammed together with a complete lack of privacy and no shelter to speak of for who knows how long. Horst, Elaine is 6 months pregnant. You can't expect her and others who are sick and infirm to sit under the blazing sun for weeks on end. We can lash tarpaulins over the holes, replied Horst. It's not much, but it'll shield us from the sun and the rain. Birgit's voice cut through the crowd's low babble. I have another concern. People move aside. Birgit's voice cut through the crowd's low babble. I have another concern. People moved aside as she walked to the fire. What with the 200 crowns Clovis's view and the money Darman and his brothers spent, we've used up most of our coin. Unlike those in cities, our wealth lies not in gold but in animals and property. Our property is gone and few animals are left. Even if we turn pirate and steal these barges, how can we buy supplies at Cherm or passage farther south? The important thing, rumbled Horst, is to get to Term in the first place. Once we're there, then we can worry about what to do next. It's possible that we may have to resort to more drastic measures. Loring's bony face crumpled into a mass of wrinkles. Drastic. What do you mean, drastic? We've already done drastic. This whole venture is drastic. I don't care what you say. I won't use those confounded barges, not after what we've gone through in the spine. Barges are for grain and animals. What we want is a ship with cabins and bunks where we can sleep in comfort. Why not wait another week or so and see if a ship arrives that we can bargain passage on? Where's the harm in that, EH? Or why not? He continued to rail for over 15 minutes, amassing a mountain of objections before ceding to Thane and Ridley, who built upon his arguments. The conversation halted as Roran unfolded his legs and rose to his full height, silencing the villagers through his presence. They waited, breathless, hoping for another of his visionary speeches. It's this or walk, he said. Then he went to bed. The hammer falls. The moon floated high among the stars when Roran left the makeshift tent he shared with Baldor, padded to the edge of the camp, and replaced Albrecht on watch. Nothing to report, whispered Albrecht, then slipped off. Roran strung his bow and planted 3 goose feather arrows upright in the loam, within easy reach, then wrapped himself in a blanket and curled against the rock face to his left. His position afforded him a good view down and across the dark foothills. As was his habit, Roran divided the landscape into quadrants, examining each one for a full minute, always alert for the flash of movement or the hint of light that might betray the approach of enemies. His mind soon began to wander, drifting from subject to subject with the hazy logic of dreams, distracting him from his task. He bit the inside of his cheek to force himself to concentrate. Staying awake was difficult in such mild weather. Ellipsis. Roran was just glad that he had escaped drawing lots for the 2 watches preceding dawn, because they gave you no opportunity to catch up on lost sleep afterward and you felt tired for the rest of the day. A breath of wind ghosted past him, tickling his ear and making the skin on the back of his neck prickle with an apprehension of evil. The intrusive touch frightened Roran, obliterating everything but the conviction that he and the rest of the villagers were in mortal danger. He quaked as if with the ague, his heart pounded, and he had to struggle to resist the urge to break cover and flee. What's wrong with me? It required an effort for him to even knock an arrow. To the east, a shadow detached itself from the horizon. Visible only as a void among the stars, it drifted like a torn veil across the sky until it covered the moon, where it remained, hovering. Illuminated from behind, Roran could see the translucent wings of one of the Rizak's mounts. The black creature opened its beak and uttered a long, piercing shriek. Roran grimaced with pain at the cry's pitch and frequency. It stabbed at his eardrums, turned his blood to ice, and replaced hope and joy with despair. The ululation woke the entire forest. Birds and beasts for miles around exploded into a yammering chorus of panic, including, to Roran's alarm, what remained of the villagers' herds. Staggering from tree to tree, Roran returned to the camp, whispering, "The Rizak are here. Be quiet and stay where you are," to everyone he encountered. He saw the other sentries moving among the frightened villagers, spreading the same message. Fisk emerged from his tent with a spear in hand and roared, "Are we under attack?" What set off those blasted? Roran tackled the carpenter to silence him, uttering a muffled bellow as he landed on his right shoulder and pained his old injury. "Rizak," Roran groaned to Fisk. Fisk went still and in an undertone asked, "What should I do?" "Help me to calm the animals." Together they picked their way through the camp to the adjacent meadow where the goats, sheep, donkeys, and horses were bedded. The farmers who owned the bulk of the herd slept with their charges and were already awake and working to soothe the beasts. Roran thanked his paranoia that he had insisted on having the animals scattered along the edge of the meadow, where the trees and brush helped to camouflage them from unfriendly eyes. As he tried to pacify a clump of sheep, Roran glanced up at the terrible black shadow that still obscured the moon, like a giant bat. To his horror, it began to move toward their hiding place. If that creature screams again, we're doomed. By the time the Rizak circled overhead, most of the animals had quieted, except for one donkey, who insisted upon loosing a grating hee-haw. Without hesitation, Roran dropped to one knee, fit arrow to string, and shot the ass between the ribs. His aim was true, and the animal dropped without a sound. He was too late, though, the braying had already alerted the Rizak. The monster swung its head in the direction of the clearing and descended toward it with outstretched claws, preceded by its fetid stench. Now the time has come to see if we can slay a nightmare, thought Roran. Fisk, who was crouched beside him in the grass, hefted his spear, preparing to hurl it once the brute was in range. Just as Roran drew his bow, in an attempt to begin and end the battle with a well-placed shaft, he was distracted by a commotion in the forest. A mass of deer burst through the underbrush and stampeded across the meadow, ignoring villagers and livestock alike in their frantic desire to escape the Rizak. For almost a minute, the deer bounded past Roran, mincing the loam with their sharp hoofs and catching the moonlight with their white-rimmed eyes. They came so close, he heard the soft gasps of their labored breathing. The multitude of deer must have hidden the villagers because, after one last circuit over the meadow, the winged monster turned to the south and glided farther down the spine, melding into the night. Roran and his companions remained frozen in place, like hunted rabbits, afraid that the Rizak's departure might be a ruse to flush them into the open or that the creature's twin might be close behind. They waited for hours, tense and anxious, barely moving except to string a bow. When the moon was about to set, the Rizak's bone-chilling shriek echoed far in the distance, then nothing. "We were lucky," decided Roran when he woke the next morning. "And we can't count on luck to save us the next time." After the Rizak's appearance, none of the villagers objected to traveling by barge. On the contrary, they were so eager to be off, many of them asked Roran if it was possible to set sail the day instead of the next. "I wish we could," he said, "but too much has to be done." Foregoing breakfast, he, Horst, and a group of other men hiked into Narda. Roran knew that he risked being recognized by accompanying them, but their mission was too important for him to neglect. Besides, he was confident that his current appearance was different enough from his portrait on the Empire's poster that no one would equate one with the other. They had no difficulty gaining entrance, as a different set of soldiers guarded the town gate, whereupon they went to the docks and delivered the 200 crowns to Clovis, who was busy overseeing a gang of men as they readied the barges for sea. "Thank Thank ye, Stronghammer, he said,
Mother
tying the bag of
fuck!
coins to his belt. There be nothing like yellow gold to brighten a man's day. He led them to a work table and unrolled a chart of the waters surrounding Narda, complete with notations on the strength of various currents, locations of rocks, sandbars, and
How
other
the fuck
hazards,
was I
and decades
missing?
worth
I'm
of sounding
sitting right there
measurements.
beside him.
Drawing a line with his finger from Narda to a small cove directly south of it, Clovis said, "Here's where we'll meet your livestock. The tides are gentle this time o' year, but we still don't want to fight them and, no bones about it, so we'll have to be on our way directly after the high tide." "High tide," said Roran. "Wouldn't it be easier to wait until low tide and let it carry us out?" Clovis tapped his nose with a twinkle in his eye. "Aye, it would, and so I've begun many a cruise. What I don't want, though, is to be slung up on the beach, loading your animals, when the tide comes rushing back in and pushes us farther inland. There be no danger of that this way, but we'll have to move smart so as we're not left high and dry when the waters recede. Assuming we do, the sea'll work for us, eh?" Roran nodded. He trusted Clovis's experience. "And how many men will you need to fill out your cruise?" "Well, I managed to dig up 7 lads, strong, true, and good seamen all, who have agreed to this venture, odd as it is. Mind you, most of the boys were at the bottom of their tankards when I cornered them last night, drinking off the pay from their last voyage, but they'll be sober as spinsters come morn, that I promise you. Seeing as 7 were all I could find, I'd like 4 more." "4 it is," said Roran. "My men don't know much about sailing, but they're able-bodied and willing to learn." Clovis grunted. "I usually take on a brace of new lads each trip anyway. So long as they follow orders, they'll do fine, otherwise, they'll get a belaying pin upsides the head, mark my words. As for guards, I'd like to have 9, 3 per boat. And they'd better not be as green as your sailors, or I won't budge from the dock, not for all the whiskey in the world." Roran allowed himself a grim smile. "Every man who rides with me has proved himself in battle many times over. And they all answer to you, young Stronghammer," said Clovis. He scratched his chin, eyeing Gedrick, Delwyn, and the others who were new to Narda. "How many are with you?" "Enough. Enough, you say, I wonder." He waved a hand. "Never you mind me. My tongue runs a league before my own common sense, or so my father used to tell me. My first mate, Corson, is at the Chandler's now, overseeing the purchase of goods and equipment. I understand you have feed for your livestock. Among other things. Then you'd best fetch them. We can load them into the holds once the masts are up." Throughout the rest of the morning and afternoon, Roran and the villagers with him labored to ferry the supplies, which Loring's sons had procured, from the warehouse where it was stored into the sheds with the barges. As Roran trudged across the gangplank to the Edeline and lowered his bag of flour to the sailor waiting in the hold, Clovis observed, "Most of this tain't feed, Stronghammer." "No," said Roran, "but it's needed." He was pleased that Clovis had the sense not to inquire further. When the last item had been stored away, Clovis beckoned to Roran. "You might as well go. Me and the boys will handle the rest. Just you remember to be at the docks 3 hours after dawn with every man jack you promised me, or we'll lose the tide." "We'll be there." Back in the foothills, Roran helped Elaine and the others prepare for departure. It did not take long, as they were accustomed to breaking camp each morning. Then he picked 12 men to accompany him to Narda the next day. They were all good fighters, but he asked the best, like Horst and Delwyn, to remain with the rest of the villagers in case soldiers found them or the Rizak returned. Once night fell, the 2 groups parted. Roran crouched on a boulder and watched Horst lead the column of people down through the foothills toward the cove where they would wait for the barges. Orville came up beside him and crossed his arms. "Do you think they'll be safe, Stronghammer?" Anxiety ran through his voice like a taut bowstring. Though he too was worried, Roran said, "I do. I'd bet you a barrel of cider that they'll still be asleep when we put ashore tomorrow. You can have the pleasure of waking up Nola. How does that sound?" Orville smiled at the mention of his wife and nodded, appearing reassured. "I hope I'm right." Roran remained on the boulder, hunched like a bleak gargoyle, until the dark line of villagers vanished from his sight.
Oh, yeah.
They woke an hour before sunrise, when the sky had just begun to brighten with pale green and the damp night air numbed their fingers. Roran splashed his face with water and then outfitted himself with his bow and quiver, his ever-present hammer, one of Fisk's shields, and one of Horst's spears. The others did likewise, with the addition of swords obtained during the skirmishes in Carvajal. Running as fast as they dared down the hummocky hills, the 13 men soon arrived at the road to Narda and, shortly after that, the town's main gate. To Roran's dismay, the same 2 soldiers who had troubled them earlier stood guard by the entrance.
Good.
As before, the soldiers lowered their poleaxes to block the way. "There be quite a bit more of you this time," observed the white-haired man. "And not all the same ones either. Except for you." He focused on Roran. "I suppose you expect me to believe that the spear and shield be for pottery as well?" "No, we've been hired by Clovis to protect his barges from attack on the way to Term." "You, mercenaries." The soldiers burst out laughing. "You said you were tradesmen." "This pays better." The white-haired man scowled. "You lie. I tried my hand at being a gentleman of fortune once. I spent more nights hungry than not. How large be your company of tradesmen anyway?" 7 yesterday and 12 today, 13 counting you. It seems too large for an expedition from a bunch of shopkeepers. His eyes narrowed as he scrutinized Roran's face. "You look familiar. What'd be your name, E.H.?" "Stronghammer." It wouldn't happen to be Roran, would? Roran jabbed forward with his spear, catching the white-haired soldier in the throat. Scarlet blood fountain. Releasing the spear, Roran drew his hammer and twisted round as he blocked the second soldier's poleaxe with his shield. Swinging his hammer up and around, Roran crushed the man's helm. He stood panting between the 2 corpses. "Now I have killed 10. Orville and the other men stared at Roran with shock. Unable to bear their gazes, Roran turned his back on them and gestured at the culvert that ran beneath the road. "Hide the bodies before anyone sees," he ordered, brusque and harsh. As they hurried to obey, he examined the parapet on top of the wall for sentries. Fortunately, no one was visible there or in the street through the gate. He bent and pulled his spear free, wiping the blade clean on a tuft of grass. "Done," said Mandel, clambering out of the ditch. Despite his beard, the young man appeared pale. Roran nodded and, steeling himself, faced his band. "Listen, we will walk to the docks at a quick but reasonable pace. We will not run. When the alarm is sounded, and someone may have heard the clash just now, act surprised and interested but not afraid. Whatever you do, give people no reason to suspect us. The lives of your families and friends depend on it. If we are attacked, your only duty is to see the barges launched. Nothing else matters. Am I clear?" "Aye, Stronghammer," they answered. "Then follow me." As he strode through Narda, Roran felt so tense, he feared he might snap and explode into 1,000 pieces. "What have I made of myself?" he wondered. He glanced from man to woman, child to man to dog in an effort to identify potential enemies. Everything around him appeared unnaturally bright and filled with detail. It seemed as if he could see the individual threads in people's clothing. They reached the docks without incident, whereupon Clovis said, "You be early, Stronghammer. I like that in a man. It'll give us the opportunity to put things nice and shipshape before we head out." "Can we leave now?" asked Roran. "You should know better than that. Have to wait till the tide's finished coming in, so we do." Clovis paused then, taking his first good look at the 13 of them, and said, "Why, what'd be the matter, Stronghammer? The lot of you look as if you saw the ghost of old Galbatorix himself." "Nothing a few hours of sea air won't cure," said Roran. In his current state, he could not smile, but he did let his features assume a more pleasant expression in order to reassure the captain. With a whistle, Clovis summoned 2 sailors from the boats. Both men were tanned the color of hazelnuts. "This be Torsen, my first mate," said Clovis, indicating the man to his right. Torsen's bare shoulder was decorated with a coiled tattoo of a flying dragon. "He'll be skipper of the Marybelle. And this black dog is Flint. He's in command of the Edeline. While you are on board, their word is law, as is mine on the Red Boar. You'll answer to them and me, not Stronghammer. Well, give me a proper aye if you heard me." "Aye, said the men. "Now, which of you be my hands and which be my men at arms?" "For the life of me, I can't tell you apart." Ignoring Clovis's admonishment that he was their commander, not Roran, the villagers looked at Roran to see if they should obey. He nodded his approval, and they divided into 2 factions, which Clovis proceeded to partition into even smaller groups as he assigned a certain number of villagers to each barge. For the next half hour, Roran